Emma Frost. She has probably one of the most famous secondary mutations in Marvel Comics. Originally, she was known purely for her powerful, telepathic abilities, making her one of the strongest psychic mutants in the X-Men universe. For years, her powers focused entirely on reading minds, projecting thoughts, and controlling metal energy. Everything changed after the destruction of Genosha. During the explosion, Emma survived because her body instinctively transformed into a diamond-like form, revealing a brand new secondary mutation. And this transformation covered her entire body in a nearly indestructible organic diamond structure, protecting her from the blast. Since then, Emma Frost has been able to switch between her human form and her diamond form at will. In this state, her body becomes extremely durable and resistant to physical damage, though she temporarily loses access to her telepathic powers. Mask. He is one of the most disturbing members of the Morlocks in the X-Men universe. His original mutant power allows him to reshape the physical appearance of others simply by touching them. Using a psionic ability, often described as physiognomic reshaping, Mask can sculpt flesh like clay, changing someone's face, body structure, skin color, or even turning their limbs into monstrous shapes such as tentacles. For most of his life, however, there was one major limitation to his ability. Mask could not change his own body. Despite being able to manipulate the flesh of others with ease, he remained trapped in his own grotesque appearance. And that changed after an encounter when Shatterstar pierced him with a sword, nearly killing him. In that moment, Mask instinctively rearranged his own internal organs to survive, and this triggered a secondary mutation, allowing him to reshape his own body just as easily as he reshapes others. With this evolution, Mask gained the ability to take on different forms and modify his body internally and externally. Archangel. He first manifested a fairly simple mutant power, and that's large feathered wings that allowed him to fly. For many years, flight was his only ability, making him one of the earliest X-Men with a more straightforward mutation. However, Warren's life became far more complicated after being transformed by Apocalypse into Archangel, gaining metal wings and becoming one of Apocalypse's horsemen. Over time, his powers continued to evolve, and he eventually developed what many stories describe as a secondary mutation connected to his blood. His blood gained the ability to heal and restore others, allowing it to act almost like a powerful biological medicine. In certain stories, this healing blood was even capable of saving people from severe injuries or deadly conditions. Toad. He is a mutant whose powers were inspired by the traits of a frog. From the beginning, he possessed abilities like superhuman agility, powerful legs for jumping, enhanced reflexes, acidic saliva, and a long prehensile tongue. These traits made him a loyal and useful member of Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, often using his tongue and mobility to capture enemies or move quickly in combat. Later in the comics, Toad experienced a secondary mutation while living in the mutant territory of Mutation, and this mutation specifically affected his most recognizable feature, and that's his long tongue. After the mutation, Toad gained the ability to ignite his tongue to what fans often call his flaming tongue. This allowed him to attack opponents with a flaming tongue, and while it's still unclear how hot these flames are or exactly how the ability works, the mutation made Toad far more dangerous than before, I guess. Gambit. He is known for his ability to charge objects with kinetic energy, causing them to explode when thrown. He usually uses playing cards as weapons, throwing them with incredible accuracy and speed. Because his fighting style relies heavily on aiming and precision, Gambit normally depends a lot on his eyesight to hit his targets during battle. At one point, Gambit was temporarily blind. Losing his vision could have made it impossible for him to continue fighting as an X-Man. However, during this time, his mutant genetics reacted and triggered a secondary mutation. This mutation gave Gambit a form of clairvoyant instinct, allowing him to sense danger and react to threats even without seeing them. Instead of clearly predicting the future, the ability worked like a warning system, alerting him to attacks or dangers before they happened. Although Gambit eventually regained his eyesight, this temporary mutation showed that his powers could evolve in unexpected ways when pushed to the limit. Blob. He has always been known for his massive body and incredible durability. His original mutation gave him extreme strength, near immovable stability, and a body that can absorb powerful impacts. Because of this, he became a dangerous member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and one of the X-Men's most physically intimidating enemies. Blob developed a second mutation after being experimented on with the powerful substance known as Mothervine. This mysterious mutagen was designed to trigger new powers in mutants, and when Blob was exposed to it, his already unusual physiology evolved even further. The mutation allowed Blob to stretch and reshape his body far beyond its normal limits. However, the ability proved extremely unstable. When it first appeared, he stretched his body too far and painfully collapsed into a melting, puddle-like mass. While the power made him more flexible and potentially more dangerous, it also showed that his new mutation was difficult to control and could seriously harm him if pushed too far. Beast. When he first appeared, Hank looked mostly human, but possessed extraordinary intelligence, agility, and large hands and feet, which gave him incredible strength and balance. His real gift was often considered his brilliant mind, as he was one of the smartest scientists among the X-Men. Over time, Hank experimented on himself in an attempt to understand and control his mutation. These experiments altered his physical appearance. His body became covered in blue fur, and he developed sharper teeth, claws, and enhanced physical abilities, turning him into the more animalistic figure fans recognize today. In later comics, especially during Grant Morrison's New X-Men, Beast experienced a secondary mutation, and he evolved even further into a more feline-like form. His features became sleeker and more cat-like, with sharper senses, greater agility, and even stronger physical capabilities. Fearless. She was born blind, but developed powerful telepathic abilities after being transformed into a mutant by the X virus. With these powers, she could read minds, sense emotions, and perceive the world around her through psychic awareness. Her telepathy also allowed her to detect danger and communicate mentally with others, making her a valuable member of the Alpha Warriors. However, during a traumatic battle between her ally and Cable, Angela experienced intense psychological stress, and this moment triggered a secondary mutation caused by the unstable effect of the X virus interaction with her existing powers. As a result, her abilities evolved beyond simple telepathy. After the secondary mutation, Angela gained telekinesis, giving her the ability to move objects with her mind, and this power allowed her to push enemies away, lift objects, and manipulate her surroundings without physical contact. Kid Omega. He is an Omega-level telepath and telekinetic, capable of reading minds, manipulating thoughts, creating psychic weapons, and moving objects with his mind. His mental abilities are so advanced that he can project powerful psionic blasts, create complex psychic constructs, and even build entire worlds inside the minds of others. At one point, he experienced a rare secondary mutation that dramatically changed the nature of his existence. His brain cells began transforming into faster-than-light psionic energy, causing him to evolve into a non-corporeal being. He became a disembodied consciousness connected to the thoughts of every sentient mind on Earth. However, he eventually returned to a physical body after being freed from a containment unit. Once he regained his normal form, he lost access to many of the extreme abilities he had while in his energy state. Carmilla Uniscion. She is best known as a member of Magneto's Acolytes. Her primary power is the ability to generate a psionic exoskeleton, a protective energy field that surrounds her body like armor. This field can block powerful attacks and can even be shaped into weapons, such as claws or blunt striking forms. Through this energy shell, she can also release bioelectric charges that disrupt a person's nervous system, temporarily paralyzing them. Later, she developed a secondary mutation after being exposed to the powerful substance known as Mothervine. This mutation enhanced the energy generated by her psionic field, so instead of simply protecting her or delivering controlled shocks, the energy within her exoskeleton began to grow stronger over time every time it was used. Unfortunately for her, this new power came with a serious drawback. The energy amplification became uncontrollable, causing dangerous feedback that harmed both her and everything around her. Her bioelectric charges could spread widely, damaging living beings and even causing nearby electronics to malfunction or explode. So while the mutation made her powers far more destructive, it also made them unstable and painful for her to control. Husk. Her original powers allows her to shed her outer layer of skin and reveal a completely different material underneath. By doing this, she can transform into substances like metal, diamond, wood, granite, rubber, or even glass. Each form gives her different advantages, such as superhuman strength, durability, or special abilities, depending on the material she becomes. However, using her powers has never been easy for Paige. Transforming too many times can cause intense physical pain, and sometimes stress can make her change forms without meaning to. She also has to concentrate on the material she wants to become, otherwise her transformation might happen randomly. Because of this, her ability was always difficult to control. Later on, Husk developed a secondary mutation that affected her mind rather than just her body. Each time she transformed, she could experience severe mood swings, personality shifts, or even blackouts. In some cases, she wouldn't fully remember what happened while she was transformed, and this psychological side effect made her powers much more dangerous to use, forcing her to be extremely careful whenever she activated her mutation. Wolfsbane. He has the ability to transform into a wolf or a hybrid wolf-human form. In these forms, she gains enhanced strength, speed, agility, and extreme sharp senses such as smell, hearing, and night vision. Her physiology also gives her claws, fangs, and a regenerative healing factor. During the events surrounding the mutant nation of Mutation, she underwent a secondary mutation that significantly altered how her powers worked. Instead of simply transforming into one wolf or a hybrid form, Wolfsbane gained the ability to split herself into an entire pack of wolves, usually 5 at once. Each wolf acts as part of her, allowing her to attack enemies from multiple directions at the same time. Her claws also became longer and more dangerous in this form, greatly increasing her combat abilities and making her far more dangerous in battle. Wildside. This mutant has the ability to distort people's perception of reality. His original power allowed him to create intense hallucinations that affected a person's mind rather than just their senses. Victims would experience terrifying or confusing illusions that felt completely real, making it extremely difficult for them to understand what was actually happening around them. At one point, Wildside lost his powers after many mutants were depowered. However, during the events involving the mutagenic substance Mothervine, his mutation returned and evolved into something much more dangerous. This exposure triggered a secondary mutation that greatly enhanced his original ability. After the mutation, Wildside gained the power to solidify the hallucinations he creates, turning them into something physically real for his victims. Whatever nightmare or illusion someone experiences in their mind can temporarily become tangible as long as Wildside maintains the effect. Iceman. He is an Omega level mutant with the ability to generate and control ice. At first, his powers allowed him to freeze moisture in the air, create ice structures, and transform his body into ice temporarily. For many years, Bobby could switch freely between his normal human appearance and his icy form, letting him live a relatively normal life when he wasn't using his powers. After suffering a serious chest injury, Bobby experienced a secondary mutation that drastically changed how his powers worked. Instead of shifting back and forth between forms, his body became permanently composed of ice, and this meant his physical form was no longer truly human, but entirely made of frozen matter. And while this transformation made his mutation more extreme, it wasn't necessarily an improvement. In this state, Bobby struggled emotionally with losing his normal human appearance, and his ice body could sometimes be fragile and vulnerable to shattering. And although Iceman remains one of the most powerful mutants in Marvel, this secondary mutation forced him to adapt to a very different version of his powers. Sebastian Shaw. He is a powerful mutant and longtime leader of the Hellfire Club. His primary ability allows him to absorb kinetic energy, such as punches, explosions, or impacts, and convert it into physical power. The more energy he absorbs, the stronger, faster, and more durable he becomes. This makes him extremely dangerous in combat because every attack against him only fuels his strength. Later, Shaw underwent a secondary mutation after being exposed to the Mothervine. This evolution enhanced his existing abilities by removing one of his biggest limitations. Previously, Shaw needed to absorb energy from direct attacks or physical activity in order to power himself up. After his mutation, Shaw gained the ability to absorb ambient, kinetic energy from the environment around him without needing to be hit first. He could also release this stored energy as powerful blasts or shock waves, firing concussive energy attacks from his hands or unleashing destructive waves in all directions. This upgrade made him even more dangerous, allowing him to fight at full power without relying on enemies to strike him first. Elixir. He is an extremely powerful mutant with the ability to control the biological structure of living beings. His main power, called biokinesis, allows him to heal injuries, cure diseases, manipulate life force, and even resurrect the dead. Because of the incredible scale of his healing abilities, Elixir is considered an Omega level healer, capable of affecting biological systems down to the genetic level. At one point, he triggered a secondary mutation while using his powers to heal himself. After this event, his skin permanently changed to a metallic golden color, which became a visible sign of his healing abilities. This transformation is known as dichrometamorphic skin, and it reflects the state of his powers whenever he uses them. When Elixir uses his abilities to heal and restore life, his skin appears bright gold. However, when he uses his powers offensively, for example causing disease, injury, or death, his skin shifts to a dark metallic black. And this change seems to happen automatically and may also affect his brain chemistry, showing the constant balance between his powers to create life or destroy it. Thomas Cassidy. He is a mutant who originally possessed the ability to channel powerful energy blasts through wood. He usually focused this power through his wooden shillelagh, allowing him to release concussive or heat-based blasts during combat. Over time, various experiments and genetic alterations changed the nature of his mutation, leading to the development of a secondary mutation. And this mutation caused Black Tom's body to partially merge with plant-like organic matter, giving him a strong connection to plant life. As a result, he gained the ability to control and manipulate vegetation, including trees and other other plant-based organisms. His body even began developing wood-like textures, showing how deeply his mutation had evolved. Later stories expanded this power even further when Black Tom formed a symbiotic connection with living island of Krakoa. Through this link, he could sense everything happening across the island and control parts of its environment, such as moving trees, shifting the terrain, or using the ecosystem itself as a weapon. Polaris. She can control magnetism, much like her father Magneto. Her powers allow her to manipulate magnetic fields and generate electromagnetic energy. For most of her life, these magnetic abilities defined her role among the X-Men and made her one of the strongest magnetic mutants in Marvel. At one point, the villain Zaldane stripped Lorna of her magnetic powers. Losing the abilities that defined her triggered an unexpected reaction in her mutant genetics. The shock activated a latent secondary mutation, revealing a completely different set of powers that had never appeared before. During this brief transformation, Polaris' body grew larger and stronger, giving her immense physical strength and durability similar to the Hulk. This hulked-out version of Polaris turned her into a powerful physical fighter instead of a magnetic one. However, once her original magnetic powers returned, these Hulk-like traits disappeared, making the transformation only a temporary phase of her secondary mutation. Wolverine is famous for his healing factor, enhanced senses, and adamantium claws. For most of his life, these abilities defined his mutation and made him one of the most dangerous fighters in the X-Men. However, his powers changed dramatically after a brutal encounter with Magneto, who ripped the adamantium out of Wolverine's skeleton. Without the metal poison in his body, Wolverine's healing factor suddenly had far less strain on it. Instead of constantly fighting the effects of the adamantium, his mutation began to evolve in a new direction. This triggered what many stories describe as a secondary mutation, causing Wolverine to undergo a kind of primal de-evolution. During this period, Logan became far more feral and animalistic. His instincts intensified, his behavior became more savage, and he relied heavily on his heightened senses and predatory nature in combat. While this version of Wolverine was extremely dangerous, it didn't last forever. Once the adamantium was eventually restored to his skeleton, Logan gradually returned to his more controlled, familiar self.